Everybody, welcome. Thank you for your patience. We were giving folks a little bit of extra time to join. We've got quite a number of confirmed folks dialing in from all over the country and even around the world. So thank you for joining us. Hope you're having a good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you live. So again, welcome to today's info session of Point of Pride's Thrive Fund. Thanks in advance for your time and attention by joining us. My name is Jeff Main. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the co-founder and executive director of Point of Pride. I've been with the organization since inception, working to help develop these programs and cultivate partnerships and donor relationships. Prior to joining as ED last year, I had a background in marketing and design, working for a marketing firm. I live in Philadelphia with my wife, our preschooler, and our 3 cats. It is extremely likely that one of those beings might make a cameo during today's presentation.
How's it going? My name is Tyler, he, him. I am the director of programs with Point of Pride. I've been with Point of Pride officially as an employee since the beginning of 22. I forget now. Before coming to Point of Pride, my background is in healthcare, specifically in pharmacy insurance. I was doing that for 15 years. And any of you that are familiar with or have interacted with the organization, you know me as the email guy.
Hi, my name's Abby. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the care coordinator, and I've been with Point of Pride for about a month and a half. My role is to provide support to our recipients and ensure that they get the most from their grant. My background is in medical startup development. I've helped create a telehealth platform and a care coordination service for disabled adults. I live in Houston, Texas, with my husband, 5 dogs, and 2 cats.
While today's info session is going to focus entirely on our Thrive Fund, our organization offers financial aid and direct support through other programs that we wanted to quickly share with you just in case it's helpful. The Annual Trans Surgery Fund provides direct financial assistance to trans folk towards gender-affirming surgery. The HRT Access Fund provides direct financial aid to trans folks who can't afford gender-affirming hormone replacement therapy. The Electrolysis Support Fund provides direct financial aid to trans folks seeking permanent hair removal services, including electrolysis or laser hair removal. Point of Pride also mails out free chest binders and femme shapewear garments to trans folks who need them entirely for free. We've served thousands of people in all 50 states and 120 countries and counting. Each of these programs I just mentioned has its own application process, timeline, and details, and you can learn more about each of them on our website, www.pointofpride.org. So today's agenda. First, we're going to go over the program. We're going to talk about some important dates. We're going to talk about what you can expect as an applicant, our reviews process, what you can expect if you are selected as a recipient, and then we're going to end with an open Q&A. There's no need to screenshot anything that I'm presenting. This deck will be shared with you in an email after today's info session. We're also recording today's session, and this will be shared to our YouTube channel as well. You're free to keep your questions till the end when we get to that open Q&A. You can also drop questions at any time in the Q&A. Tyler will be monitoring and may even respond in real time. And just as a heads up, if you do ask a question, when we say it aloud, we won't use any identifying information like your first name. So please feel free to ask all of the questions that you'd like without concerns about privacy. About the Thrive Fund. This is a scholarship-like program that provides direct financial assistance towards gender-affirming needs, including things like prosthetics and wigs, vocal training, fertility preservation, and much more. We're really excited because this is a brand new program for our organization. We announced it for the first time on June 1st of this year, which means this will be the first ever cycle of the Thrive Fund. And before we go further, I just want to flag that access to healthcare is a right that every person, trans or cis, deserves. Unfortunately, with our current resources, we do anticipate that this program will be competitive, much like our other programs. We unfortunately don't have a frame of reference to compare to previous years to be able to provide more specifics about what percentage of applicants will be accepted. But that said, If we look at our other financial aid programs as a reference point, we anticipate an award rate between 5 and 25%. So the requirements to apply. First, we require that you identify as trans, and we have a very broad definition of what that means, a very wide trans umbrella. So if you identify as not cis, you are eligible to apply. We do require that you live within the United States. So as I mentioned when I was welcoming everyone, I know there are some folks on today's call who live outside of the United States. Unfortunately, you would not be eligible to apply to this program. Some of our other programs are fully international, so I would recommend that you check those out if they fit your healthcare needs. We require that you have financial need that prevents you from affording your care. And so I have a little asterisk there. You'll recall a few minutes ago, I mentioned some of the other programs that we offer. If you're seeking gender-affirming surgery, hormone replacement therapy, permanent hair removal services, a chest binder, or a gaff, we ask that you not submit your application to the Thrive Fund. We instead ask that you follow the application process of those respective programs. We require that the request you submit is not for transportation, housing, or emergency needs. At this time, those just fall outside of the funding priorities of this grant. And we ask that we require rather, that your request be for an upcoming need that is not covered by one of Point of Pride's other dedicated programs. So again, just repeating, surgery, HRT, permanent hair removal services, or gender-affirming garments. The Thrive Fund prioritizes applicants in need of purchases or services that happen one time or have clearly defined start and end dates. However, you are still eligible to apply if your needs are ongoing. This fund also prioritizes applicants that are facing intersecting needs or gaps in existing structures, such as if your request is a prerequisite or is associated with another gender-affirming healthcare need. So what do we mean by this? Here are some examples of the types of care that would be considered within the Thrive Fund. The purchase of gender-affirming prosthetics or wigs. The fees associated with obtaining approval towards gender-affirming care, such as letters from licensed therapists in order to access HRT or surgery. The fees associated with getting or updating passports, driver's licenses, state IDs, birth certificates, and tribal IDs. The costs associated of hiring professional nursing or caregiving support following a gender-affirming surgery. The purchase of intense pulse light or IPL hair removal devices. Waxing services or other non-permanent forms of hair removal. Vocal therapy or voice training sessions. Medical tattooing, which can also include services around scar lightening or scar removal. Fertility preservation or reproductive health services, including contraception, IUDs, and birth control implants. Funding priorities and eligibility. So again, this fund does not cover transportation, housing, or emergency needs, which looks like travel or lodging expenses to another state or country, permanent relocation to a state or country where care is legal or more accessible, basic living expenses like rent, utilities, clothing, and groceries, or crisis or emergency funding. So again, those types of requests are unfortunately not eligible through the Thrive Fund. This fund unfortunately does not reimburse for needs or services that you have already paid for. And so if you do not meet these requirements, we would encourage you to please complete a brief feedback survey. This is a pilot program. This is our first year running this program, and we expect that the application criteria and our own funding priorities will shift over time so that we can continue to best meet the needs of our community. So your feedback will help us in that way to expand the program, to better serve folks. Thank you in advance for completing that ineligibility survey. Some other notes. You are welcome to apply regardless of your employment, housing, disability, or immigration status. You can apply regardless of whether or not you have health insurance. You can apply regardless of whether or not you are on hormone replacement therapy or are taking other steps in your transition. And you are still welcome to apply if you have already received funding or support through any of Point of Pride's other programs, either now or in the past. So some important dates. Our applications will open in a couple of days on Thursday, August 1st. They will close on Saturday, August 31st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. This is a hard deadline. Absolutely no applications can be accepted after this date. And when you apply, so whether you apply first thing on August 1st or at the end of the day on August 31st, that has no impact, positively or negatively, on your likelihood of receiving funding. So now we'll talk a little bit about what you can expect as you apply. When you apply, you have the option to name a support person in your application. This is someone that can provide help as you navigate our application process. So you can list someone that would serve as a liaison, a translator, or a general support person. This can be a friend, a chosen or blood family member, a counselor, a social worker, really anyone who you feel will help you navigate the process and submit a high quality application. This person would be CC'd on all email notifications regarding your application status, and access can be revoked at any time by the applicant simply by contacting us. Again, this is optional. You do not have to name a support person on your application if you do not want to or do not need one. Support people are also able to apply during the same application cycle. So you can be both an applicant for your own care needs as well as a support person to another applicant. If you are under the age of 18 years old, you will be required to list your parent or your legal guardian as your support person. Instruction packet. So we've put together a document that'll walk you through every question on our form to hopefully explain exactly what our reviewers are seeking to understand about your unique needs. So we'll drop a link to our instruction packet in the chat for you to review and bookmark. This will also be included in that follow-up email after today's presentation. We highly recommend that you consider or even draft your written responses ahead of time. Lots of recipients of other programs in the past have told us that's been a really helpful thing for them. And because this is a new program, it's intentionally designed to be really flexible to address a wide variety of needs that our community might have outside just surgery, HRT, permanent hair removal services. So our instruction packet also includes 2 sample applications to demonstrate the level of detail and thoroughness that our reviewers are looking for. We especially recommend that you check those samples out. Our application form will ask you for contact information, optional demographic information, information around your healthcare needs, and short answer responses for you to demonstrate your financial need. And again, all of these questions are explained within that instruction packet. The form itself is hosted on a platform called JotForm. It's secure and HIPAA compliant. We also store your data following privacy best practices, and more information about all of that can be found in the privacy policy on our website. Through the Thrive Fund, you may request up to a maximum award of $2,500. Typically, 99.9% of cases, grants are paid directly to a service provider or a retailer. In the very rare instances where Point of Pride must pay you directly, it would be your responsibility to report this income to the IRS. And we have more information about that in an FAQ on our website. Again, this is very rare. If your request exceeds $2,500, you should be prepared to explain the total cost as well as how you intend to make up that difference. If you are selected as a finalist, or if our reviewers determine that they need additional information, you will be contacted via email. You may be invited to submit additional written responses or to participate in a brief phone or online interview. If you are selected as a recipient, we will contact you again via email or phone regarding next steps. The full details of your award will be explained in your recipient agreement, and we'll talk about that in just a second. If you are not selected as a finalist or a recipient, we will notify you via email, and you are welcome to apply again during the next application cycle. So those dates are still to be determined. This is, again, the first year that we're offering the Thrive Fund, but we do anticipate that it will be an annual program. So we expect applications to open again in 2025. In the meantime, our team will store your application materials for a full year. Sometimes, as we get new financial grants or opportunities as an organization, we have the ability to pair additional candidates, additional recipients in the future. If that is the case, we would contact you at that time via email. We have a whole list of frequently asked questions on our website. Encourage you to check those out. But we wanted to take a few moments to talk about the ones that we think are most common. So the first is, what are the age requirements? So the Thrive Fund does not have any age requirements. If you're under 18, we will require consent from a parent or legal guardian who will be required to be listed as the support person on your application, as well as providers if you're seeking a service with a provider. There is no upper limit for age. Are there any health or BMI requirements to apply? So no. Point of Pride does not have any requirements or limitations around health or BMI or other criteria, but we also recognize that depending on your care needs, your provider may. So it would be your responsibility to meet any requirements set forth by your preferred provider. Can the fund reimburse past transition-related expenses? Unfortunately, no. So we understand the challenges of debt and medical loans that so many of us have had to deal with in order to access care and related services to our transition. At this time, however, you must apply for financial aid towards future services or purchases. Our grants are typically paid directly to providers and retailers beforehand. Can you help me find a provider? Unfortunately, no. Our team does not have the expertise or the ability to provide referrals or recommendations for trans-affirming providers. And can I submit more than one application? Unfortunately, no. Again, we recognize that so many of us have multiple concurrent healthcare needs. However, at this time, we require that you apply using one application for one healthcare need per cycle. So now we'll talk a little bit about the reviews process. So when our application period concludes at the end of August, our staff, specifically Tyler, takes all of the applications that we've received and hides identifying information such as your name, your email address, and your phone number. These applications then get shuffled into randomized packets of 50 applications for review. So again, that's why there's no advantage to submitting your application earlier rather than later within that month-long application window. The packets get distributed to our board of directors and our community grant-making fellows. These are specially trained grant-making volunteers. All of our CGFs identify as trans themselves. To minimize the impacts of unconscious bias, our reviewers all follow the same scoring rubric and receive continuing education. In addition, your application will be reviewed by at least 2 different reviewers. Oftentimes, it's 3 reviewers. In terms of timeline, we anticipate it will take between 4 and 12 weeks from the application end for us to be able to review and select recipients. Again, we don't really have historical data, but we anticipate between 5 and 25% of applicants will be selected as recipients. So unfortunately, this will be a highly competitive process. You'll hear from Point of Pride via email regarding your application status. We recommend checking your spam filter, or something you can do after today's info session is add Point of Pride to your safe senders list. That ensures that you never miss a message from us. So now we'll talk a little bit about what you can expect if you are selected as a recipient of the Thrive Fund. You'll receive an email from us notifying you that you are a recipient, and that email will include a grant agreement. This is a PDF document that explains the full details of your award. Within that agreement, we will list the grant award amount, and this award amount will be customized based on your request and your own personalized needs. Again, the maximum amount that we'll be able to award is $2,500. Also in that agreement, we'll explain the grant timeline. So you'll have a window of 18 months to be able to utilize these funds with your chosen service provider or retailer, depending on what you need. That email will also ask you to complete a couple additional forms. So we'll ask you for a signed HIPAA disclosure. This names Tyler and myself as points of contact that can speak to your provider's office or your retailer. We do this strictly for payment fulfillment. We don't ask for any medical information or other personal data. You'll also complete a support person disclosure. This just confirms that if you did name someone as a support person earlier in the application process, that you're still comfortable including them in future correspondence around your award or payments or things like that. So you can revoke or change your support person at that time too. We'll also ask you to complete a partner authorization form. So Point of Pride builds partnerships with other values-aligned nonprofits that also serve the trans community. So these other orgs offer services that we don't. Things like post-operative nursing care or free flights within the United States to be able to access healthcare. So because we don't directly provide these services, we can refer you to trusted partner organizations if that's something that you choose. Only in the event that you sign this form and opt in, would we ever share your personal contact information with a third-party organization? And lastly, we'll ask you to complete a media disclosure agreement. You can see a tiny screenshot on the right-hand side of this slide. In this form, you'll have the option to tell us exactly how you want your name, your photos, and information to be shared publicly. And for your privacy and security, you can be as anonymous as you'd like to be. And so to talk a little bit more about that storytelling, if you follow us on social media or if you've been on our website, you might have seen some of these public-facing announcements where we share the stories of the people that we've served. And we encourage our recipients to write their stories in a way that feels affirming and safe for them. So this means that many recipients choose to not publicly disclose the personal or perhaps even traumatic details that they might have shared privately in their original application. So in other words, when you apply, if you share information about your disability status, health or mental health status, immigration status, experiences of discrimination, that information does not need to go into a public announcement unless you so chose. With so many mainstream stories that focus on trans hardship, we believe that allowing our recipients to have complete control over their story and what they share helps to foster trans joy. So you'll see in the image on the right-hand side of this slide, some of our recipients have chosen to use their photo. Some have chosen to have it blurred. In some instances, we've selected stock photos that represent the recipient's ethnicity origin. So I'd encourage you to visit our website and read through their stories for some examples of what this looks like. And most importantly, nothing ever gets published or shared without your permission. So I want to say thank you again, everyone, for joining us today, for learning more about the Thrive Fund. We're about to go into our Q&A, but first, if you need to connect with us, if you think of questions after today's session, you can always reach us by emailing thrive@pointofpride.org. You can also connect with us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter a little bit, TikTok we're trying, and you can also visit us at www.pointofpride.org. When you leave today's info session, you're going to see a link to a very quick feedback form. It should take about a minute. If you would please fill that out, let us know your thoughts. It really helps us make sure that info sessions like these are valuable for folks in the future. So thank you so much. And with that, we're going to go into our open Q&A. Great. So I see someone asks, does it matter how much savings you have? Can you apply even if you don't have any financial savings? So great question. Yes, you can apply regardless of how much savings you have, including if you have no savings. As you go through our instruction packet, though, you'll see some guidance about how talking about that fact, right, whether or not you have savings, could be a way to provide more information to our reviewers about your healthcare needs. So great question. I see someone asks, is the nursing care required to be professional? My partner is going to have to take unpaid time off from work that will put financial stress on us. Would the fund be eligible to basically pay them to be your caregiver? That is an excellent question. I think that I would encourage you to apply. And the guidance that I would say to everyone who's listening is if you are unsure whether or not your request is eligible or meets the funding priorities of the fund, please submit an application anyway. You will see there'll be an option in our form where you can click other and you can write in the type of care request that you have. I think that this is unique, but it's certainly, or excuse me, it's not that unique. It's actually a really common experience that people are primary caregivers for other folks in their life and as a result have to take off from work. I think that it's unique for our team to consider as that was just not something that was scoped in the original plan. And what makes it unique is that there's the potential that Point of Pride would have to pay either you or your partner directly, which could create some tax implications because of the income of us creating like a one-to-one payment. So again, I would encourage you to submit that application and explain your situation in detail in the short answer responses. Someone asks, you mentioned a 5 to 25% approval from other programs. How many individuals does that mean on average? So great question. And Tyler, please feel free to correct my numbers as I know you are the numbers guy. For a frame of reference, our annual trans surgery fund historically gets around 2,000 to 3,000 applications a year. And we awarded 67 or in the ballpark of 70 recipients last cycle. That was our most competitive program. The grant awards were much larger than what we're talking about with the Thrive Fund. So it was a smaller number of recipients. However, we recently awarded our electrolysis cohort, and I think we had 140 some odd folks within there out of 2,000 applications, Tyler. Is that about right?
180 folks out of not quite 2,000 applications, but
Yeah, so that
yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so I mean, again, it's tricky to say. We're doing our best to spread awareness about this new program, and I know that there's been a lot of really great word of mouth about it. We just don't know how many applications we're going to get. We're anticipating it'll probably be between, 2,000, 2,500, and that depending on the type of care that's requested, we also don't know how many folks might be going for larger types of expenses higher up on that $2,500 grant threshold versus lower types of expenses that might be, only a couple $100 or less. So there's really a lot of learning that we're going to be doing during this sort of pilot beta first cycle, and we'll have much more clarity about this in years to come. So sorry I can't give more specifics, but I thank you for the question. So someone asked, can I submit multiple applications for each of my healthcare needs? So unfortunately, no. Again, we know so many of us have multiple high priority healthcare needs in our lives, our transitions. Unfortunately, we're going to require that you only submit one application per funding cycle. So we would recommend that you think about which need is most pressing or highest priority in your life. If you were to submit multiple applications, we would only consider the first one that we receive. The rest our system would flag as duplicates and would not be read. Hope that helps clarify. Someone asks if I'm seeking a service, do I need to have selected a provider before applying? Great question. No. If you're seeking a service with a provider, so whether that's a medical service, vocal coaching, training, medical tattooing, anything where another person is doing the service for you, you don't need to have decided who that preferred provider is ahead of time. In the application, we'll ask you whether you've received a quote or if you have other details. But even if you have not gotten a quote or consulted with a provider, it won't impact your eligibility or your likelihood of receiving a grant. Yep, so I see someone in the Q&A asking, so to confirm, I can't use this for gender affirming prosthetics and nursing care. That's right. So at this time, we would require that you select either one of those two needs and focus the entirety of your application and your written responses just on that single need. So someone asks, I need fertility health services for egg retrieval, but I haven't started researching anything about the process yet. Can I still apply? So yes, you can still apply. While it's not required for you to have all of the details around your care worked out, you will need to know some basic information in order to successfully, navigate the application process. That's because if your services exceed $2,500, we're going to ask you to explain how you intend to make up that difference in cost. And fertility services are, unfortunately, for the most part, very expensive. So our reviewers would be expecting you to provide some sort of detailed responses here, which would require you to have some rough estimates or just knowledge of the steps involved in your specific process. So hope that helps clarify. Cool. So I'm actually seeing a couple questions that have been related to the surgery fund. So I'm going to go on a brief tangent because I think it is helpful. So our annual trans surgery fund will accept applications starting in the month of November. That period is going to be for the entirety of November. We typically award recipients in the early months of the following year. I think last year our awards went out in February and we made public announcements in March. One of our stipulations, because of the time that it takes for us to process applications and select recipients, is that you not have surgery, I think, before April 1st of 2025. I see Tyler nodding. So I share this because I'm seeing a couple attendee questions about eligibility or saving applications for surgery fund. But if you already have a scheduled surgery date that is before April of next year, you would unfortunately not be able to apply to the surgery fund because, again, that process takes time and it would not meet your time sensitive need. We have some we have some other organizations and resources that we can point your way. When in doubt, we always recommend that you reach out to your nearest LGBTQ center. There's a great tool that we like. It's called Centerlink. You can actually plug in your zip code and find all of the nearest LGBTQ centers near you. Sometimes those local organizations are more aware of payment options or resources or even social support that can help you as you're thinking about how you can afford access surgery and recover well afterwards. So I'd strongly recommend that you check that out as well if you're thinking about a surgery that's upcoming sometime this year. Someone asks, can you use this for hair removal? So great question. Point of Pride already offers a program called the Electrolysis Support Fund that provides grants to folks that are working with a esthetician, a spa, a service provider to have electrolysis or laser hair removal. If you're seeking non-permanent forms of hair removal, like waxing, for example, or if you're looking to purchase a device where you can do hair removal at home, like an IPL device, you can apply to the Thrive Fund for those types of needs. But if you're looking for electrolysis, laser hair removal with a provider, we would instead ask you to check out our electrolysis fund. And those links will be in the email that you get following today's info session. So I see a question, can a nonprofit organization apply for the grant on behalf of trans individuals? We have an esthetician on staff who would like to provide services to the community. So great question. This is actually one that we've started to see increasingly, so it might change in the future. However, at this time, the grant is only for individuals who are seeking financial aid for their own specific care. So organizations, nonprofits included, are not eligible to apply. Someone asks, if we are getting surgery covered by our insurance, could we apply for funds for a caregiver for the recovery after my insurance will not cover that? Yes. So that's a great example of the example that I had given earlier, right? Caregiving support, whether that's professional or another person asked about, if my loved one is caring for me, those would both be eligible requests, and we would recommend you submit an application. I just want to pause and thank everybody for such excellent questions. I know they're giving me a lot of food for thought about how this program might develop and change and how we can, explain it better to applicants in the future. And so thank you so much for that engagement. Great. I'm seeing the Q&A has slowed down a little bit, so I think we'll wait a couple more minutes in case other folks have some questions. Someone asks, I work at Starbucks and their insurance covers facial feminization surgery, but given the pay, it'll be too hard on me financially to be able to access that health care, specifically with the nurse for the post-op period. Will my employment status and healthcare or insurance status hinder me or weaken my application at all? So no. I'd encourage you to apply, again, regardless of that employment status or that insurance status. We recognize that so many of us have really complex, personalized barriers that often get in the way of us being able to get care. Some of us might have really great insurance, but the deductibles might be too high. There's just so many examples of people that are then stuck, of which this financial aid is really impactful. So no, it does not affect or weaken your application. Include those details and other details so that we can better understand your specific situation. And again, our instruction packet has a bunch of bullet points that gives you some more information about what our reviewers are looking for there. And I see another question. Does the permanent hair removal program cover at-home machines, or would it qualify under this grant? So great question. So that would be for Thrive Fund. If you're seeking an at-home machine, you're not going to a spa or working with another provider, please apply through the Thrive Fund. If you're looking to have your hair removal done by a professional or a service provider, we'd actually ask that you apply to our other program, the Electrolysis Support Fund. Okay. If I've received support from Point of Pride in the past, am I eligible to apply? Yes. Yes. Okay, great. I think we'll give just one more minute for Q&A. Again, please feel free to reach out to us if other questions come up following today's info session. When in doubt, we would recommend that you submit an application to the program. Because this is its first year, it's a pilot program, we really are very interested to see what sort of requests we get from the community about other types of gender affirming care. And so, if you are unsure of your eligibility, please apply. If you know that the type of request that you're seeking is ineligible, we thank you in advance for filling out that brief survey that I had mentioned. Again, your feedback will help this program change and grow as we continue. Someone asks, can you be awarded the Thrive Fund multiple times in different years? Yes. So just like how if you have received support through other Point of Pride programs, you're eligible to apply to this one. We anticipate this will be an annual program. You can apply every year for different healthcare needs each year. Okay, well, I want to say thank you again, everybody, for your time, your attention, your excellent questions. Please feel free to reach out to us if you think of any other questions. I hope that you all have a lovely day. And when we leave today's info session, you're also going to receive a link to take a really brief feedback survey about how today's session went. Thank you in advance for completing that. It should take about a minute. All right, take care, everybody. Thank you.